This week on Resto Talk, we're going to talk about restorations. So some of the questions I typically get asked are, what's involved in doing a restoration? How long will it take? And what kind of budget should I have for this project? So I have to typically ask them questions back. And the questions are, how are you going to use the car? Is it going to be a daily driver? Is it going to be a car you're going to use on the weekends and go to car shows? Is it show quality, or is it a concourse car? Any one of those picks can determine how the car is going to get restored and the budget you're going to need to have for it. Let's take a concourse restoration. What's involved in a concourse restoration is getting original parts, bringing it back to the day that it ran off the showroom floor. Getting original parts can be tricky depending on the year of the car and the type of the car. The type of car that you would want to use would be more of an investment grade quality. So you would want to get a car that in the end is worth putting the money, that kind of money, into it. Your next one is a show quality, which you're going to maybe spend a little bit more than what the car is worth, but you're going to have a car that is respectable. You can go to the show, open the hood, and be proud of that. You're going to put reproduction parts in. It won't affect the value of the car. Like on a concourse car, you don't want to use reproduction parts. So there you're going to save a little bit of money on your weekend show car type of restoration. You're going to have your rally car, which also could be more expensive to restore or to make a rally car. And when I say rally car, here they have 1,000-mile trips where they get together with 50 or 60 cars. They have a 3 or 4 day trip. They spend 200 or 300 miles a day driving all over the country. Putting a car together like that needs to be dependable. It needs to have quality parts, and it needs to withstand the pounding of 300 miles or 400 miles a day in a total of 1,000 or 1,500 miles. So the consideration of the cost of that is in the parts and also in the time of putting it together. And last, you would have a car that is just going to be a daily driver. That may mean just rebuilding the engine and the tranny and making it dependable. Not so worried about if the paint looks great, if you have a scrape here or there, if the chrome is up to par. You know, the interior is nice, but you don't have to go over the top. So that also is a good way of going, but if you're thinking of doing something like that, also your resale value, if you ever wanted to sell it, isn't going to be as high as doing a restoration that you've put more time into and quality of parts and more detail. The best way of doing a restoration and getting the most value for the car when it's done is what they consider a nut and bolt restoration, a frame off restoration, bare metal restoration. That's what you would do, is you would take the car completely apart, every nut and bolt. It would be sandblasted, powder coated, painted, rebuilt, new pieces. Once that all goes back together, you have a very good quality car. Let's take your daily driver and or your weekend warrior that you're going to go to car shows with. Keeping the body looking original, keeping the interior pretty original is a good way to keep in a budget. But the acceptable thing on that is that we would want to possibly upgrade the brakes to power disc brakes. You may want to put air conditioning in it depending on what part of the country you're in. Suspension, there's nothing wrong with upgrading the suspension to better bushings or better springs for better handling. Trying to consider a budget, what I've had people do, or I've even done myself, is you take a legal pad and you put down all the parts you think you're going to need and assess a number to it, even if it's a roundabout number. For instance, I'm going to put headers on it, so that's $500 or $600. You know, you don't have to be exact on that. And you'll find that you're going to fill up probably a legal pad and even then some. Add up all those numbers. That's going to give you a good round number of what you're going to spend in parts. Typically, if you're doing a frame-off restoration with painting and interior, you could spend 800 to 1,000 hours doing this car. You can figure in your parts cost. You can safely put in there that you're going to spend 800 to 1,000 hours, whether that's going to be shop time or your time or a little of both. That's how you're going to figure out how much you need to budget for this car. The purchase price of the car also depends on where you're going to end up with as far as the value of the car. So you're going to want to figure parts, your hours and labor dollars, and then what you spent for the car purchasing it to begin with. Thanks for watching this episode of Resto Talk. If you like this, hit the like button. If you want to see more of Resto Talk, subscribe to the channel. Also, you can see us on Facebook and Instagram.